Hold on to your hats, because the impossible just became possible. We're about to journey into the realm of the unbelievable, where creatures long thought lost to the annals of time have made a shocking reappearance. Get ready to witness jaw-dropping footage of extinct animals captured on camera in their natural habitats, proving that nature still holds secrets beyond our wildest imagination.
Extinct bat. In 2019, the Hill's horseshoe bat species were spotted for the first time in 40 years. The bats are home to a Rwandan rainforest. Scientists figured that they were endangered and had gone extinct already, since they hadn't seen them in years. That was until 2019 when scientists were on a 10-day expedition, and they came across these little guys. But when they first captured the bat, they didn't know how great their discovery was going to be. One scientist said, and I quote, "We knew immediately that the bat we had captured was unusual and remarkable. The facial features were exaggerated to the point of being comical. It took them 3 years to then identify what species this bat belonged to. Once they did, that's when they realized that this bat was brought back to life." In our 9th spot, we have Catagonus wagneri. Back in the day, this animal was discovered from early fossil records. They were thought to be extinct and people only knew about them because of the fossils. That was until 1974. That's when a biology professor from University of Connecticut rediscovered them while on a research expedition. In fact, the species was well known to the native people there. However, they are badly endangered. A huge population of them live in a 2,400-acre area in Gran Chaco. They hide out in the bushy, thorny areas so that they're safe from predators and local hunters. Sadly, only approximately 3,000 remain in the world. Moving on to number 8, we have tarsier. Now these guys are undeniably cute. Just look at its eyes, like they're so cute and big for its tiny little body. But strangely enough, scientists still don't know much about them. One of the reasons being is that scientists thought that they went extinct in the 1920s. But in May of the early 2000s, while checking a rat trap that they had set in the forest, scientists discovered that they had actually caught a pygmy tarsier. Sadly, it had died in the trap. But that's what let them know they were still alive, minus that one. Then in 2008, researchers found a family of them in Lore Lindu National Park. Nowadays, it's believed that there are only 5,000 to 10,000 of these animals in the whole world. And that number is sadly falling again instead of rising. Now this is because these little creatures don't live too long in captivity. In fact, when they are in distress, they apparently try to take their own lives. So that's a reason why it's hard to look after these little guys and keep them off the endangered list. In our 7th spot today, we have the goblin shark. Now if you all have been a fan of this channel for a while, then you guys know that I hate this guy. Like, I'm not scared of sharks, but this guy, like, he's terrifying. He doesn't even look like a shark. He looks like a mutated shark. Like a shark that scientists tried to cross with a human or something. Anyways, goblin sharks were believed to have gone extinct millions of years ago. That was until 1891 when researchers spotted it off the coast of Japan. Instantly they were confused, but also scared, because again, look at this thing. What they found the weirdest though is that this shark barely changed over time. They didn't evolve at all. They still look the exact same, hence why they are called a living fossil. So these creatures can grow 12 feet long and can weigh up to 460 pounds. But in 2000, they found a giant goblin shark that was 20 feet long. So now researchers say that they have no real idea about how big they can truly get. Now the scariest part about them is that they have these weird ligaments in their jaw, and that allows them to extend their mouths out and snatch up their prey. Plus, their mouths launch out pretty fast. That's also why it makes their mouth look so creepy, you know? In our 6th spot, we have the tequila fish. And it's a very interesting name for a fish. I hope their relatives are called the vodka fish. So these fish disappeared from the Mexican wild in 2003. This was due to pollution and invasive species. People thought there was no hope, that these fish were just gonna die off. But turns out that conservationists were able to bring them back to life after a decades-long operation. Basically, scientists at Michoacán University in Mexico took 5 pairs of these fish in 1998. They then kept the fish safe, studied them, and then they made them reproduce to develop a larger colony. After 4 years in artificial ponds, scientists were able to increase these 5 fish to 10,000. However, only 1,500 were released back into the wild. And apparently the released fish are thriving and reproducing out in the wild.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Steller's sea cow. Stellar indeed. Okay, the Steller sea cow was named after George Wilhelm Steller, who discovered this massive creature in 1741 during the Vitus Bering's Great Northern Expedition. They found her right after the crew became shipwrecked. What a lovely surprise to an otherwise horrible situation. They were around over 2.6 million years ago, and they were no match for humans. They only swam about 1 meter deep, and once humans came into the picture with, hunting and aggression and everything, they were quite easy to hunt. George Steller commented that the animals had an uncommon love for their families, which in turn made it even easier for us to hunt them. Considering the 1-year gestation period, the species just couldn't reproduce fast enough to keep up with our hunting. But this list, we have a little hope now, don't we? Scientists were able to sequence the genome, which could mean we could see the creature again one day. Hopefully. The answer may lie right now in the DNA of a dugong. Dugongs are the cow of the sea. You know what, they're great. Let's have all the cows of all seas back immediately. Number 9, passenger pigeons. The passenger pigeon once ruled the skies over Canada as recently as the 19th century. Billions of these bright orange birds would just paint the skies. They would fly in flocks so large it would block out the sun for a short amount of time. Isn't that beautiful? It's like some Lion King stuff right there. But only a few decades passed and passenger pigeons are now no more. So what happened? Well, the very last passenger pigeon, her name was Martha. She passed away in the Cincinnati Zoo back in 1914. So we took a look at her DNA to see if Martha held any secrets to her extinction. They discovered Martha had a low genetic diversity for such a growing population. Natural selection and hunting obviously just eliminated the coolest looking bird out there by far. A little different than the pigeons we have today, that's for sure. The last one died in 1914, but in 2019 paleontologists found remains of the pigeon protected in indigenous lands in Canada, up in Northwest Territories. They blended passenger pigeon DNA with Archaeopteryx dinosaur DNA. Yeah, we're bringing back pigeons with a hint of dinosaur. What could go wrong? Number 8, the woolly mammoth. It was announced only months ago that a team of scientists and entrepreneurs over at a company called Colossal are planning to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. That's just the thing we need right now in this world. Out of all the problems, we're like, you know what could solve it? The woolly mammoth, for sure. That'll bring jobs back. The Siberian tundra thousands of years ago was once full of these woolly mammoths, but climate change began to slow them down just a little bit. And humans also needed food, so that surely didn't help. These guys provided warmth and, well, look at them, obviously a lot of food. Genetics company Colossal raised over $15 million to try and bring this thing back to life. Honestly, I hope it works, but then, now what? All these things are great scientifically, but it's like, and then what? Number 7, the dodo bird. Speaking of the devil, we're definitely gonna eat these guys. Dodo birds were once big and beautiful. These flightless ground nesting birds once filled the island of Mauritius, located in the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons, they were big, gray, and blue, and they didn't have any natural predator, which is pretty sweet. They didn't have one until we came along. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors and, well, the rest is history. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase dead as a dodo. They weren't just loved by sailors either. We're not just 100% here to blame, Monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to the island easily had their eggs for lunch. So yeah, it didn't take a long time for the dodo bird population to be completely wiped out. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, but can we bring back the dodo bird? Are we doing it? I think we're gonna do it. Scientists found an extremely well-preserved dodo skeleton back in 2007, so we may have a chance at picking some DNA apart here. A research facility near Melbourne, Australia is currently trying to use pigeon genes to bring this bird back to life. I'm all for the idea of bringing back an animal. Scientifically, that's a feat in itself, but do we really think nobody's gonna make dodo chicken wings? I'm just saying. That's just a problem waiting to happen. Number 6, Pyrenean ibex. The last Pyrenean ibex was a female named Celia. A falling tree sadly killed her in 2000. She was a subspecies of the Spanish ibex, and the Pyrenean ibex were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France, as her name hints towards. Back in the medieval ages though, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. So it wasn't just recently, it was way back, because of, again, we got hungry. They were all over the place, and knights and swords and bows and armies to feed. They were hunted down, sadly. Disease spread by humans also played an important role in their demise during this time. The Pyrenean ibex was successfully cloned and brought back from extinction for 7 minutes. So we actually did this one. DNA from the last living lady was implanted in the womb of a domestic goat. Lung complications are why the clone didn't last, but listen to what I just said. They made a clone. 7 minutes is a start. I think I could handle a clone of myself for 7 minutes, and then after that I'm tapping out.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the coelacanth. You're not gonna believe this, but these fish were around when dinosaurs roamed the earth. In fact, they were believed to have gone extinct alongside the dinosaurs. Then, millions of years later, they were rediscovered. In the 19th century, scientists discovered a fossil of this fish. This fossil was over 410 million years old. They thought they went extinct around 66 million years ago. So it shocked scientists quite a bit when in 1938 they rediscovered them off the coast of South Africa. They're just alive and thriving. In our 4th spot, we have the singing dog. This animal has been named the singing dog due to their distinctive howl. Sometimes they howl together to form kind of like a choir. Apparently their howls sound like a cross between a wolf's howl and a whale's song. They are also called the New Guinea Highland dogs and are closely related to the Australian dingo. Now, wildlife biologists thought that these animals went extinct sometime in the 1970s. However, in 2016, they were rediscovered in a remote region of New Guinea. Tests were run on them and it was confirmed that they were the same breed. In our 3rd spot, we have the tree lobster, which is not an animal, so I'm technically cheating having it on today's list because it's an insect, but who cares, okay? The tree lobster is a large black stick insect. In fact, it is said to be one of the rarest insects on Earth. Back in the day, they were popular for fishing, as they were used for fishing bait. But by the 1920s, they were said to be extinct. Basically, a ship accidentally crashed onto an island and rats aboard the ship got introduced onto the island and threatened these species. But later on, a pair of Australian scientists discovered 24 of these bugs living beneath a single shrub. They ended up taking 2 pairs, breeding them, and then reintroducing more of these insects to help repopulate them. In our 2nd spot today, we have the night parrot. Night parrots are often referred to as one of the world's most mysterious birds. They were first discovered in 1845 and were extremely rare to spot. That's because they come out at night and only in remote areas. Even then, there had not been a single sighting of these birds for 100 years, so they were declared extinct. That was until 1979 when a number of them were spotted again. In fact, this bird is the holy grail for bird watchers. Some spend decades hoping to get a glimpse of this bird up close. And in our number 1 spot today, we had the Kashmir musk deer. But I like to call them the vampire deer because they have vampire fangs. So these deer are native to Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, and western Nepal. It was believed that they went extinct in 1948 until they were rediscovered in 2009. However, they are badly endangered. It's said that there are less than 5,000 musk deer throughout the world. The main reason being is because they are a very popular target for hunters. Hunters like to kill them for their musk glands, which are often used in perfumes. They are said to be a rare aphrodisiac and can sell for around $45,000 per kilogram. Now, it is illegal to hunt for them, but that still doesn't stop people.
Number 5. Tasmanian tiger. Once native to Australia, the Tasmanian tiger, also known as the thylacine, it was a massive carnivorous marsupial that went extinct around the 1930s. Major factors here, as you guessed, climate change, hunting, and its genetic diversity wasn't all too great. It was sad on one hand because these beautiful creatures disappeared so recently, but it's recent enough that we have a shot at bringing them back. So we're like, but maybe. Yeah, imagine looking outside and seeing this thing on your front yard. Are we ready for this? Specimens still remain preserved in jars. Thank God for those jars. About time we open those things up, right? All those jar guys are like, finally, pull this one out. Already we have some of the Tasmanian tiger genes present after scientists inserted them into a mouse fetus. The Australian Museum has been working hard to bring this beast back to life. They're only still lacking the DNA to fully recreate it. So if you have any jars of Tasmanian tiger parts, help us out, hit those thumbs. Number 4, the great auk. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow to 30 inches long and its tiny wings would be only used to swim. Had little tiny wings. The wings were much smaller, they were about 13 centimeters long, little flappy arms. No wonder they couldn't fly, look at these things, oh my god. They were cute, but obviously they were quite defenseless. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting, and it just happened to be where most of these great auks were hanging out. Newfoundland looked like the iceberg from Club Penguin, and then we just rolled in and we're like, we are so hungry. It was packed, so they rapidly declined, and by 1950 the last 2 known specimens were hunted by a single fisherman on LD Island. just off the coast of Iceland. Scientists plan on using genetic information extracted from their fossils or preserved organs. Remember those jars of organs always coming in handy. They plan on editing their DNA in the closest living species, which is now the razor-billed auk. The organization Revive and Restore is behind the wheel on this one, and I'm hoping they pull through. Number 3, the moa. This New Zealand bird went extinct about 600 years ago. Moa were these flightless birds, massive might I add, and archaeologists first discovered its fossil in a cave. Its flesh and everything was still attached, that's the gross part. These ancient birds would reach about 5 feet tall, and when you think of dinosaurs, you probably think that's quite petite in comparison. These birds stopped flying right after the dinosaurs went extinct. Interesting timing. According to biologist Matthew Phillips from the Australian National University in Canberra, these birds safely roamed the land after they didn't need to make these daring dino escapes in the sky. They walked around, got fat, and would hang out in caves. Honestly, pretty ideal. Phillips says this is an advantage when it comes to birds and evolution because wings, be it big or small, kill energy. So it might seem a little depressing to watch a creature lose the ability to fly, but it's because they're eating good, they're comfortable now. Scientists have now found more moa DNA from ancient eggshells, so it's possible that we may see these fatties soar the skies once again. Number 2, Megatherium, aka giant ground sloths. That's a bit of a nicer name. Yeah, sloths, let's bring those back. Wait, they're already here. I'm confused, Taylor. Sloths used to be a lot bigger than we think. We often look at them now for being so slow and silly. The movie Ice Age or Zootopia, they sure didn't help their case. Now, of course, the giant ground sloth is closely related to our modern three-toed sloth, but luckily for us, today's sloths aren't that big. They're not the same size as an elephant, which is pretty sweet. That would be a horror film. If a giant elephant-sized sloth started to climb that tree, slowly, might I add, I'd be sick. We may be able to bring this one back, although they died off 8,000 years ago. DNA samples were extracted from their hair remains, so the next step now is to develop a fetus in an artificial womb. That's the hard part. That's where science and technology might just do the rest. But as of right now, we've got a pile of hair. We're like, maybe. And finally, number 1, the gastric brooding frog. I'm a big fan of frogs and toads, all that stuff. Except for when they hatch eggs out of their back. That's arguably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. We'll maybe show you after, maybe, I don't know. These gastric brooding frogs would swallow their eggs and then hatch them out of their mouth. So if you watch them give birth in reverse, it would be pretty confusing. That would be a horror film. They went extinct back in 1983, but scientists have figured out how to implant these dead cells into a fresh egg from an entirely different frog species. Let's just hope these new ones aren't born out of your back.
Let's not in at number 10. Whoa, that guy's fast. What is that? His nose is like so long. Is this real? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know how to research this little guy. Okay, well, apparently that was the elephant's shrew, last known to be seen over 50 years ago, but it was rediscovered in August of 2020. These mighty little mouse-like creatures are thriving in Africa. Pretty cool something so small was able to evade a full extinction. So before we get into number 9, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video because it really helps us out. Alright, let's see what we have in at number 9.
The tarsier is named... Whoa! Hello there, freaky. The tarsier is named after its long, impressive bone in its ankle, you perv.
Okay, whoa, what is this little thing? So the animals on this list are pretty tiny. This one is no different. The pygmy taser of the taser family of the world's smallest primates hails from the depths of Indonesia. The taser still lives, but its pygmy's cousin is said to have been extinct, until a man accidentally captured and killed one in a mousetrap in 2000. Since then, several pygmy tasers have been found and tagged in Indonesia, and it is believed that they no longer exist.
Great big, thin, membranous ears. And those sharp teeth, more like those you'd see on a bat.
Okay, wait, first of all, I thought these things were cute, but they're pretty creepy if you ask me. Apparently these guys are adept predators for being able to fit in your palm of your hand. Pretty wild, but anyone else getting like the Baby Yoda vibes from this?
Perhaps it could live many centuries.
Next up at number 8, the terror skink. Thought once to be extinct. Well, this video shows a man who found one in Caledonia in 2018. These little things were said to be the T-Rex of their time. Serious meat-eating predator reptiles. They got their name from their mouthful of sharp teeth.
So this skink is the top predator here on this island in New Caledonia. There's no doubt. that this guy is the T-Rex of this island.
Number 7. Is this real life right now? What is that? There's no way that thing existed in our life. Like, what world was that real? And those sharks still, like, when they eat things, their mouths come out of their mouths, and it's just like, it's so horrifying. Here's another picture. I mean, it looks like it's real. Apparently these things went extinct many years ago, but now it has been rediscovered. This last picture right here looks so real, and it looks like it's kind of like slimy. And this one doesn't look like it was taken in the water. This one looks like it was captured, it was taken out of the water. But you can see what I'm saying about like the mouth. I'm not sure where it begins and where it ends. But is it just me, or is its teeth like exactly spaced out? Kind of creepy, sharp teeth. I'd be scared if I was like swimming and I saw one of these. Okay, so the images that we were seeing is actually the goblin shark. You guys can search it online. You guys can see so many more pictures of this. Well, it was actually said to be extinct over 125 million years ago. But like other deep sea creatures, it didn't actually disappear, it didn't go extinct. It just hid in the depths beyond human discovery, and it is said to be back and is thriving. These pictures were taken from National Geographic in 2020, so just months ago. It was actually in August. So the images you're seeing is legit. Moving right along to number 6. Move on murder wasp, Wallace giant bee, or the mega chili Pluto is said to be back in action. In 2018, 2 of these bad boys were available for the highest bidder, and none other than eBay itself, the place where we're buying Pokemon cards. I just came across a Charizard, 25 grand. Should I buy it? Okay, so apparently you can buy this creature, like you can make a transaction if you have $9,000. In 2019, a single female was found in a termite nest and reopened the species as no longer being extinct. Well, here's a clip that I wanted to share with you guys. So 100% authentic and to scale. Okay. Maybe not, but could you guys imagine like that was the size of the killer bees? Like just absolutely massive.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the woolly mammoth. We would certainly be missing a very important animal on this list if we didn't include the woolly mammoth. These guys were of course a species of mammoth, and in fact they were one of the last in line of mammoth species. Because of the fact that in both Alaska and Siberia there were frozen carcasses discovered, they're actually one of the most well-studied extinct creatures. Exactly why or how they were driven to extinction is widely debated, and another thing people like to debate is whether or not we should try and bring them back. There was a genome project completed in 2015, and since then it has been proposed that the species could be revived through a few different means, but no one yet has taken the leap. Here's the thing though, there's a new company that is pretty set on de-extincting woolly mammoths, and they have a new investor. This investor is called In-Q-Tel, and they are registered as a non-profit venture capital firm that is funded by none other than the CIA. They claim that the interest in this company is less about mammoths and more about the capability to do such crazy projects. What do you guys think about reviving extinct animals? Are we on board? Are we terrified? Let us know down below in the comments.
Number 9. Passenger pigeons. The passenger pigeon once ruled the skies over Canada as recently as the 19th century. Billions of these bright orange birds would paint the skies, but only a few decades passed and passenger pigeons are gone. They're just no more. Now we have the pigeons that follow you onto the subway, you know? What happened, right? The very last passenger pigeon was Martha. She passed away in the Cincinnati Zoo back in 1914. So we took a look at her DNA to see if Martha held any secrets to her past, and lo and behold, they discovered Martha had a low genetic diversity for such a growing population. Natural selection and hunting eliminated arguably the coolest looking bird alive. Well, not alive anymore. The last one died in 1914, but in 2019, paleontologists found remains of the pigeon in protected indigenous lands in Canada in the Northwest Territories. They blended passenger pigeon DNA with archaeopteric dinosaur DNA. So that's science for you. We're bringing back pigeons with a hint of dinosaur. What could go wrong?
In our number 8 spot today, we have the western black rhinoceros. The western black rhino was a subspecies of the black rhinoceros, and they made their home in the savanna of sub-Saharan Africa. These guys were unfortunately the victims of poaching, which led to their rapid decline. Isn't that a bit ironic? People got so greedy trying to kill these incredible animals so that they could make money off of them, and now they can't make any money off of them because they killed them all. What a genius business plan. Anyways, this species first originated around 7 to 8 million years ago, and for most of the 1900s it was the highest population of rhino species. That all changed, however, as from 1970 to 1992 the population of black rhinos in general decreased by 96%. Other than poachers, another main culprit for the decline was farmers who killed the animals to protect their crops that were placed close to rhino territories. The last sighting of a western black rhinoceros was in 2006 in Cameroon's northern province, and sadly the subspecies was officially declared extinct in 2011.
Number 7. The great auk. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow to 30 inches long, and its tiny wings would only be used to swim. Their wings were about 13 centimeters long, and they were so cute, and obviously, just looking at them, they were quite defenseless. I don't know if you could have picked up on that, yeah, you could probably take them. Very cute, very defenseless, you get it. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting. And sadly, it just happened to be where most, if not all, great auks were living. Newfoundland looked like the iceberg and club penguin. It was kinda, dare I say, perfect. Unless you were, of course, a great auk. You were eating good if you were a fisherman, so the number rapidly declined, and by 1950 the last 2 known specimens ever were hunted by a single fisherman on LD Island, just off the coast of Iceland. Yeah, one dude just Thanos the bird population. Nice, what a monster, what a great brunch. Scientists now plan on using genetic information extracted from their fossils, or preserved organs, because some have organs in jars just hiding around. They plan on editing their DNA into the closest living species, which is now the razor-billed auk. The organization Revive and Restore is behind the wheel on this one. You'll see a few names come up over and over on this list, and yeah, not too many companies are trying to bring animals back from the dead.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the Morian viviparous tree snail. This was a species of air-breathing tropical land snails that were endemic to French Polynesia. This extinction was actually caused by a chain of events that happened after something humans did. The African land snail was introduced into Tahiti in 1967 as a food source, but it quickly escaped and began to destroy crops. Biologists wanted to attempt to control the African land snail, so they decided to introduce the rosy wolf snail to the area in 1977. Well, this went absolutely haywire, as the rosy wolf snail didn't just control the population of African land snails, but rather started to eradicate all of the snails that were native to the area, which of course includes our little friend, the Morian viviparous tree snail. So this one little introduction led to them becoming totally extinct in the wild. These snails do still exist in captivity, and there have been attempts to re-release them into the wild, but the rosy wolf snail continues to prey upon them, so at this point researchers are unsure if it will ever be possible for them to live in the wild again.
Moving right along, number 5. What sound does a deer make? Go in the comment section and tell me. I don't know how you're gonna tell me a sound. Like, well, a cow would just be M-O-O-O-O-O. For a deer, I don't know how you would type out the sound of a deer, but we're not bringing you just any deer on this list. The Kashmir musk deer has been endangered, extinct, and back to endangered again. I mean, how does this even happen? Is this real life right now? One was discovered again in 2009, and they were back on the endangered list once again, likely because these guys are targeted for hunting because of their musk glands, which are said to be an aphrodisiac and can go for a whopping $45,000 on the black market. And just like that, number 4, these 5-inch freaks are also known as 3 lobsters, and they were thought to be completely eradicated decades ago in a small island off the coast of Australia. But 24 were found in 2001, and they were sent to a zoo in Australia, which has led them to the successful breeding and repopulation of these creatures. Whoa! That's like a stick insect, right? What does that remind you of? It's like I don't know what it is. But it's just so creepy. Okay, well obviously that was the tree lobsters. You know what, it kind of looks like it has like the scales of a lobster. The tree part is like the tree stick thing that I was referring to. Yeah, you guys are seeing a picture right now of those stick insects. It's They're pretty cool, but I don't know what they do. I don't know much about them. From there, number 3. What the? Is that just a dog? Like this breed of dog went extinct and now it's back and now it's howling for werewolves? It's howling for its werewolf mates? Doesn't sound like a normal dog, so maybe this is like a different creature. Well, this species of dog is actually called New Guinea's singing dog and hails from Papua New Guinea. They were thought to be extinct for decades until a pack was discovered in 2016. So there have only been 2 spotted in the wild, but there are some places around the world like the United States that have rescued what is believed to be this breed of dog that went extinct, and now they're in captivity to try to breed them, to expand them. They're clearly known for singing, you know, hence their name, hence the video we just watched. Alright, moving right along, number 2. So many of you guys think that Bigfoot is an urban legend. Well, I know that it's real. Okay, I never saw it, but like I've seen stuff like on TV and I think it's facts. Well, this creature that is like some kind of like half man, half ape that lives a lonely life in the wilderness, well, that video was from 2020 in Utah. It's pretty far away, so it's hard to tell, but I can tell. That's Bigfoot, confirmed. For sure Bigfoot. But if that's how big that thing looks from far away, like imagine how big it is when you're up close. Maybe like 20 feet. All I know is I wouldn't want to come across one. So this video was uploaded August 1st of this year, 2020. If it's not Bigfoot, then what is it? Let me know in the comment section below, what the heck creature did we just watch? And finally, in at number 1. Okay, so that clip is obviously from a movie. If you guys didn't know, I didn't know at first. I thought it was real. But the megalodon is said to be a real creature, and we couldn't not put this on this list. This is a real and verified clip of what was thought to be a megalodon underwater filmed in Japan. There are reports that the megalodon was found a couple years ago in Marianas Trench, hence the movie, hence the inspiration for the movie. Well, it was found in the Mariana Trench a couple years ago, and there was all the fuss around this creature from some of the well-known sources like Shark Week and obviously Hollywood movies that hyped this creature up. Considering 95% of the ocean has not yet been discovered by humans, it could be very possible that this thing is real in 2020, and there's probably so many other creatures we have no idea about.
Number 5, Megatherium, aka giant ground sloths. How lovely and terrifying is this one? Sloths used to be a lot bigger than we think. Yeah, we often laugh at them for being so slow and funny looking. The movie Ice Age certainly didn't help their case. Now, of course, the giant ground sloth is closely related to our modern 3-toed sloth. But luckily for us, today's aren't the same size as an elephant, because that would be a horror film. We wouldn't be alive anymore. I'd be sick to my stomach. If a giant elephant-sized sloth was in that movie, that would be not a family feature film. That is terrifying. That's Jurassic Park now. But we may be able to bring this one back, although they died off 8,000 years ago. DNA samples were extracted from their hairy remains, so the next step is to develop a fetus in an artificial womb. Yeah, that sounds easy, doesn't it? Let's just do that, sure. Let's 3D print it.
In our number 4 spot today, we have the Tasmanian Tiger. These guys are actually less like tigers that we're used to, but they're actually marsupials. But not really like the marsupials we know today. These guys are a carnivorous marsupial that was native to Australia mainland and the islands of Tasmania and New Guinea. These guys had anatomy and adaptations that bared similarities to both tigers and wolves despite being unrelated. They were certainly an apex predator at their time, and as of now, their closest ancestors that are still surviving are the Tasmanian devil and the numat. Because of these living relatives, it is thought that scientists might be able to bring back these creatures by selecting certain parts of their DNA and sort of selectively breeding the species back into reality.
Number 3, the moa. This New Zealand bird went extinct about 600 years ago. The moa were these flightless birds, massive and terrifying, might I add, and archaeologists first discovered its fossil in a cave. Its flesh and everything was still attached. They had no idea what they were looking at for numerous years. And to be fair, yeah, it's haunting, it's terrifying. These ancient birds would reach about 5 feet tall, and when you think of dinosaurs, you probably think that's quite petite in comparison to, the scary ones. But the birds actually stopped flying right after dinosaurs went extinct because they didn't need to fly anymore. They didn't need to run for their lives. According to biologist Matthew Phillips from the Australian National University in Canberra, these birds were then safely able to roam the land after they didn't need to make these daring dino air escapes. It's beautiful. They just walked around, got fat, and would hang out in caves, then they eventually died off. Dare I say, the perfect demise. Phillips says this was an advantage when it came to birds and evolution because wings, big or small, they do kill energy. So it might seem a little depressing to watch a creature lose the ability of flight, but well, it's because they're eating good, okay? Good problems. Scientists have found more moa DNA from ancient eggshells, so yeah, it's a possibility we may see these fatties soar the skies once again. They just gotta, shed a few bird pounds, that's all.
In our number 2 spot today, we have the woolly rhinoceros. We talked about another kind of rhino before, but now we have a woolly one. I didn't even really know that these once used to exist. These guys were a species that was quite common in Europe and Asia during the Pleistocene, and they survived up until the end of the last glacial period. These guys were an animal that is seen depicted in cave paintings, and we have even discovered their bones and remains that were mummified and preserved in permafrost. These guys were stocky and they had a thick woolly coat which helped them survive in the cold tundra environment. In 2020, there was actually one of the best preserved remains of one of these animals ever found, which is a remarkable scientific discovery, but it has now prompted the questions about possibly reviving the species.
And finally, number 1, the smartest of them all, the biggest, baddest, the dodo bird. Dodo birds were once big and beautiful. They once filled islands all over the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons, they were gray and blue, they didn't have any natural predator, it was great. And then humans came along. Nice, way to go. Put that thumbs up for just f***ing up everything possibly around us. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors, and yeah, the rest is history. We can probably figure out what happened there. It was delicious, dare I say. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase, dead as a dodo. They're kind of stupid. They weren't just loved by sailors either, they were not 100% to blame here, okay? Monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to these islands easily had their eggs for lunch, and they were pretty big, they were nice. Over easy. So it didn't take a long time for the dodo bird population to be completely wiped out, cause yum. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, but could it be? Could we bring back the smartest dodo bird? Possibly. I don't really want this to happen. That'd be terrifying, but it might. Scientists found an extremely well-preserved dodo skeleton back in 2007, so we may have a chance at picking apart some DNA. A research facility near Melbourne, Australia is currently trying to use pigeon genes to bring this bird back as well. So yeah, I can't wait for dodo bird chicken wings. That's gonna be a nice combo. Number 4. Ooh, number 3. Definitely number 3.
Let's start off at number 10 now with the dodo. The dodo is one of the most famous extinct animals of all time, responsible for coining the phrase as dead as a dodo. The last of these birds was thought to have died out in 1662. They were only found on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. They lived in harmony with the ecosystem there and had no natural predators until humans arrived and killed them off for food. Scientists discussed the possibility of bringing back the dodo from extinction during a TEDx discussion in Washington DC in 2013. The dodo's closest living relative is the Nicobar pigeon, and some say that one of its eggs could be fused with the cell of a dodo to create a living dodo. Imagine if that happened. It would ruin that phrase. Next up at number 9 now, we have the mammoth. Now this is perhaps the most famous extinct animal of all time. Society has been obsessed with these woolly elephant cousins for decades. Interesting fact for you guys, although most of them did die out about 10,000 years ago, a small population of mammoths survived on Wrangel Island off the coast of Russia until just 3,600 years ago. That's nothing if you think about it. Humans were running around at the end of the Bronze Age during then. Anyway, because of how recently they died out and how many of their bodies became frozen in the permafrost, scientists have actually been able to extract cells from mammoth remains. The plan is then to splice specific mammoth genes into the genome of an elephant embryo to create a sort of mammoth-elephant hybrid with all the mammoth traits we recognize. Now this isn't just for no reason either. Some scientists say that these new mammoths could help prevent tundra permafrost from melting and releasing huge amounts of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. Moving on to number 8 now, we have have the thylacine. This species died out in the 1930s after being hunted to extinction in its native Australia. It may look like a dog, but the thylacine actually belonged to the marsupial family and was a relative of kangaroos and koalas. A group of Australian scientists led by Michael Archer have previously worked on bringing back the thylacine from extinction. They called themselves the Lazarus Project. Their efforts only managed to capture some of the fragments of the thylacine DNA though, and not enough for a true clone. Still, even this was enough for people to see the thylacine as a strong candidate for eventual de-extinction. Next up at number 7 now, we have the gastric brooding frog. This little frog was native to the eastern coast of Australia and went extinct less than 100 years ago. It got its name from its interesting method of reproduction. The females would swallow their fertilized eggs, which would then hatch into tadpoles in the frog's stomach before being vomited out into the water. It sounds gross, but it definitely worked. Because of how recently they went extinct, scientists recovered enough genetic material to create living embryos. They haven't been used to create an actual gastric brooding frog yet, but some argue that even this means they are already back from extinction. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the bucado. The bucado was a wild goat native to the Pyrenees. The last one, a female named Celia, died in January 2000. Scientists preserved her cells and attempted to bring the species back from the dead. They injected the nuclei from Celia's cells into goat eggs that had been emptied of their DNA. They then implanted 57 of them into different goat surrogate mothers of closely related species. Only 7 of them became pregnant and 6 of those had miscarriages. One of the goats successfully gave birth to a clone though. Fernandez Arias held the newborn calf in his arms. He said it was struggling to breathe and all of their attempts to help failed. The calf died just 10 minutes later. It was found to have a faulty lung caused by a genetic defect. At the time, it was the closest the world has ever come to de-extinction and still remains a possible candidate. Starting off at number 10, we have the Javan tiger. This tiger subspecies was native to the Indonesian island of Java. It was a lot smaller than its Asian cousins on the mainland. Now despite this, they were no less scary to the local people there who would respectfully call them Mr. Tiger in case one of them was ever listening. As the human population there swelled in the early 20th century, the Javan tiger retreated to the mountains where they preyed on deer and wild boar. That's where the last ones were sighted in 1976, and despite huge searches for them since then, it's thought they went extinct not long after. And next up at number 9 now, we have the sea mink. Have you guys ever heard of or seen in real life a real fur mink coat? They used to be very popular. The thing is, they were made from the fur of the sea mink. This creature was native to the coasts of Maine and New Brunswick. They were longer and bulkier than other mink species, which made their coats almost twice as big. Because of this, they were hunted to extinction somewhere between 1860 and 1870, meaning any mink coat you see made from a sea mink is going to be pretty old indeed. Moving on to our number 8 now, we have the great auk. This flightless bird lived in the colder parts of coastal Canada, Greenland, Iceland, and other European fringes. It might look a bit like a penguin, but it really wasn't. These things mated for life, they lived in dense colonies and laid just one single egg on a bare rock. They lived alongside humans for about 100,000 years, but by the early 20th century their numbers were dwindling. In a cruel twist of fate, museums wanting to preserve their eggs for display only sped up their extinction, and the last one was seen in 1852. Coming in at number 7 now, we have the Tacopa pupfish. This tiny critter could only be found in 2 single hot springs in the Mojave Desert in California. They were trapped there when nearby lakes evaporated over the past 10,000 years and had lived there ever since. They were small, just over an inch or so in size, but were incredibly heat resistant. They could quite happily live in waters of up to 43 degrees Celsius or more. Sadly, being good with heat isn't everything when it comes to survival. Humans modified the area around them to build bathhouses at the springs and inadvertently introduced invasive fish species as well, leading to the Tacopa pupfish being declared extinct in the early 1970s. At number 6 now, we have the Puyuli bird, also known as the black-faced honey creeper. The Puyuli bird was discovered in Hawaii for the very first time in 1973. One of the reasons it took so long to discover them was just how small the population was. In 1980, scientists estimated the population to be just 140 birds. With such small numbers, it seemed they really started to suffer from human development in Hawaii. They lost their territory, they were eaten by human-introduced mammals such as cats, and died to new diseases. The last wild Pu'uli bird was seen in 2004, and tissue samples were taken to potentially clone it back into existence in the future. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the quagga. The quagga is an extinct subspecies of the plain zebra and lived in South Africa. The last wild quagga was hunted to extinction in 1878. The last captive one died in Amsterdam 5 years later. And because of their close relationship to the plain zebra, some scientists have created the Quagga Project, which is attempting to use selective breeding to create a new subspecies that strongly resembles the quagga. In 2016, the project announced they had 6 individuals showing the preferred pattern. The goal is to have 50 of them and then move them to a protected area for continued breeding. Will this count as the quagga being brought back from extinction? Let me know what you think. Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have Steller's sea cow. This sea mammal was discovered by Europeans in 1741 on Bering Island in the northern Pacific Ocean. It went extinct just 27 years later after being hunted for its meat, fat and hide. It belonged to a group of species known as Dugongidae. The only surviving species of that group is now the dugong. Some scientists hope that if enough sea cow DNA can be recovered, they can fuse it with the egg of a dugong and bring back the sea cow from extinction. One major problem though is size. Modern dugongs are just a fraction of the size of the extinct sea cow, so the pregnancy would be extremely difficult. Let's just say that. It's a problem that's still being worked on though. Next up at number 3 now, we have the passenger pigeon. Okay, this one might not be as cool as some of the other animals on our list, but give it a chance. In the 1860s, there were billions of these pigeons across North America. One account said that a flock once passed over southern Ontario that was a mile wide, 300 miles long, and took 14 hours to pass overhead. Less than 50 years later, they were extinct, mainly due to mass hunting. Enough specimens have been preserved so that scientists could reconstruct the bird's entire genome. The plan would then be to fuse this with the egg of the passenger pigeon's closest living relative, the band-tailed pigeon. However, there is no guarantee that the band-tailed pigeon will then tend to the egg or even look after any successful hatchlings. Next up at number 2 now, we have the auroch. About 10,000 years ago, the prehistoric settlers of India and Eurasia domesticated the auroch, an animal that looks a lot like a cow. That's because all modern day cattle are the descendants of the auroch. The auroch itself went extinct in the wild, but scientists are hoping to bring it back through back-breeding cattle. This is where they breed cattle together that resemble the auroch. They then take the calves that most resemble the auroch and breed them, etc, etc, until eventually you get something that looks a lot like an auroch. One example of this that's already happened is heck cattle. Here's some pictures of them now. However, some people have debated whether these even really look like auroch. They're also a lot smaller too. Maybe they will get there one day though. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Carolina parakeet. This bird was hunted to extinction 100 years ago. It was native to the eastern US, which surprised me because its plumage would suggest it was much more tropical. Its feathers were also the reason it went extinct. Many of them were hunted so that the feathers could be used in women's hats, which were fashionable at the time. Some remained as pets or in captivity, but eventually they all died out. Now, as with many others on our list, their extinction being quite recent is a reason why they could make a good candidate for de-extinction. Some people worry though that if it was brought back, history would just repeat itself all over again as their feathers would instantly become valuable. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Canarian oyster catcher. The Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa are home to many amazing species, and the oyster catcher used to be one of them. Now, as you guys might guess from its name, it ate oysters and other shoreline creatures. It went extinct sometime before 1940 for a number of different reasons. Firstly, humans overfished its food source. It also got attacked by rats and cats, and finally, humans absolutely loved the taste of their eggs. Unfortunately, too many eggs were eaten. Okay, coming on number 4 now, we have the round island burrowing boa. As its name suggests, this snake loved to burrow down into the soil on its tiny home of Round Island just off the coast of Mauritius. It grew up to 1 meter in length, was light brown with black spots, and had a pointed snout. It was thought to have eaten lizards but suffered habitat loss by soil erosion due to overgrazing there by goats and rabbits. It was last seen in 1975. You see, sometimes it's not just humans who make things go extinct. Goats are kind of to blame as well? Not really. Alright guys, next up at number 3 now, we have the Mexican grizzly bear. You guys might picture grizzly bears living in the American mountains or Canadian wilderness, but for a long time they had cousins in Mexico. They reached up to 6 feet tall and could weigh over 700 pounds. Now, for the most part, the bears and the humans avoided each other in this area, but when bears started killing cattle, the farmers considered them a pest and encouraged people to hunt them. Hunting them was banned, but by 1950 only 30 of them were left. The hunting continued and the last one was thought to have been sighted in 1964. Alright, moving on to number 2 now, we have the bulldog rat. Look at this chubby little thing. Some people found it cute, other people found it kind of scary. Either way, it used to thrive on Christmas Island, 1,000 miles off the coast of Australia. It wasn't the actual size of a bulldog, but it was bigger than the rats we know today, coming in at a whopping 17 inches in size. They lived almost alone on their island for thousands of years with no known predators. It became extinct at the start of the 20th century, presumably from diseases carried there by European rats on ships. And finally at number 1 now, we have the Falkland Islands wolf. Their home was the Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic, where it was the only native land mammal there. They were not scared of humans at all, but humans saw them as a threat to their sheep. They were easily lured to people by simply holding out a piece of meat and they were then killed. The Falkland Islands wolf didn't learn to not be trusting of humans and became officially extinct in 1876. Well, extinction is pretty sad in a way, but I do have some good news for you guys though. The bargy dolphin that I mentioned in part 1 to this video, well, there's actually rumours that it might not be extinct after all. There was a recent sighting. I will keep you guys updated on that. If you want me to do a part 3, let me know. If you do, I'm Danny Burke. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. Viewer discretion advised. It's about disturbing real-life demon photos that you won't believe are real, but have been confirmed by the Pope himself. Click the video now to find out more. See you guys in the next video.